When the German government announced that they were dumping the 50,000 Bitcoin they confiscated, the price of Bitcoin immediately dropped to 53K. But there are now rumors circulating that suggest the German government is buying back Bitcoin. Why might they be doing that? Today, we're going to be discussing that and more by taking a deep dive into the on-chain analytics. So, Luke, how's everything going? And yeah, what do you make of all this news here?
Dude, absolutely everybody is talking about the possibility of the German government buying back their Bitcoin. I think there's a lot to this story. The on-chain analytics we're going to dive into today is going to be fascinating. We are going to expose the truth of this story. But I think first we should start at the beginning of the story and talk about the rumors that really emerged yesterday evening on Twitter. So not many people have done videos on this topic because these rumors were only really circulating last night very late. And this is the rumor. Germany's surprise $111 million Bitcoin buyback. So this was a tweet from Invest Answers. He's got a big following, doesn't he, Brandon?
Yeah, he does. So, I mean, there's been quite a few accounts. I mean, this guy's got, nearly 220,000 followers at this point. So there's a lot of big accounts that have been picking this up, wondering why they might be doing that. We even saw this big article here from Nairametrics. They even cited this Arcam tweet, which does the on-chain analytics, which is kind of the reason that it all sparked on, right? So Arcam is a huge account with almost 500,000 followers, and they tweeted all this yesterday, watching the wallets of tracking basically what the German government was doing, selling it off, and tracking where everything was going, right? I mean, that's the beauty of Bitcoin. We can track all this stuff with on-chain analytics. So really wondering where that money was going, where the Bitcoin was going, tracking what exchanges were buying from the German government just to have an idea. We're seeing now a little bit of a buyback. So we've even seen some pushback for some politicians as well. People telling them, why is the German government really selling all these 50K Bitcoin? They should be holding some of it. They should be holding on to some of it for their strategic reserve, and even tweeting at the government to say, meet with Samson Mao. He's a friend of the show, and I've been able to speak with him a couple of times. So get him and Prince Philip on board and talk to him and see why the German government should, think about Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. So all this, the rumors were floating around, and it got picked up by quite a few people. So what do you make of all of it, Luke?
Yeah, so this tweet from a German politician is a little bit of the fuel on the fire, okay? So this is the tweet, and she's telling the German government, instead of holding Bitcoin as a strategic reserve currency, as is currently being debated in the United States, our stupid government is selling Bitcoin on a large scale. And she even shows in the photos, she sent official letters to high-up politicians in the German government, telling them, please stop selling Bitcoin. Come learn more about Bitcoin with my friend Samson and Prince Philip, okay? So this is the fuel on the fire, okay? Because right now, all we have is speculation from Arkham Intelligence. If we go back to that tweet from Arkham Intelligence, all they said is, okay, this is interesting. The German government wallets have received $111 million last night back from the addresses where they originally sent the Bitcoin. So that was to the Kraken exchange, Bitstamp exchange, and the Coinbase exchange. And people were like, hang on a minute, that's weird. The German government didn't sell the Bitcoin on those exchanges. They sent it to the exchange, but then last night, a lot of Bitcoin was sent back to the German government wallet, okay? So this is interesting. We are going to answer why we think this has potentially happened at the end of today's video, but we want to first kind of look at the impact this has had on price, okay? Because price has crashed.
It has, Luke. It has. It's crashed a good bit, and it's really not surprising though, because these pullbacks have been something that has been a nature of Bitcoin for quite some time, right? This is an oldie but goodie from our friends at Bitcoin News, showing that these 30-40% pullbacks are somewhat of a norm, especially in a bull run, right? We usually see the run up and then a quick dip and then the run back up again. So This time it is interesting because we can point to a few things, right? You can point to the German government selling, the Mt. Gox coins even being back and selling as well. So there's a few things that people like to point to and equate and think that, okay, maybe it's this time. This time is different. But, just looking at this chart here, it is pretty par for the course. And it seems like that's just kind of, a normal average pullback here. We've even seen during this bull market, we've got the average pullback being 22%. So seeing this shouldn't be a huge surprise to some people, especially with Bitcoin's volatility and kind of what we go through in the Bitcoin life cycle. But you got to remember there, Luke, Bitcoin isn't volatile, right? It's the underlying currency that's what's volatile there, right? It's the dollar that's having all this volatility, not necessarily Bitcoin. But it is interesting to see kind of the uproar and the storm that this news and this rumor that's been floating around Twitter and the old Twitterverse has caused here from, or at least that something that we can point to that potentially caused, right?
Exactly. So I suppose we framed up the most bullish side of this argument, okay? All we have right now is data showing that $111 million of Bitcoin was sent back from these 3 exchanges to the German government wallet, okay? An explanation for why that's been sent back is maybe the German government changed their mind, okay? We just showed you that they've had a lot of pressure from high up politicians in the German government asking them, why are you selling your Bitcoin? This is stupid. Donald Trump is talking about holding Bitcoin as a strategic reserve in America. Why are we selling 50,000 Bitcoin? So that's the positive side of the argument, the bullish side of the argument. But maybe we should explore the not so bullish side of the argument. And I think that will be really interesting when we dive into a couple of tweets that we've got lined up for you guys, maybe looking at why it might not be so bullish. Okay, so this here is a chart showing why we're so interested in Germany in the first place. So they are the 4th largest Bitcoin holder in the world. They've got 50,000 Bitcoin. The only countries with a bigger treasury is the United States and China. They're both sitting on around 200,000 coins. And then you've got a big drop off to the UK. So the UK's got 60,000 and Germany's nearly tied for that 3rd spot position with 50,000 coins. So that's why we're so interested in Germany. But I think maybe we should explore that next side of the argument with this tweet here that I think we're going to have a look at. So this is one that was put out there by Bitcoin News. And they said, well, the reason that $111 million was sent back to the German government's wallet was because it was not a buyback. Instead, not all of their sell orders on those exchanges were filled. So the unsold Bitcoin was returned to their account. So this is the more bearish side of the argument. What do you think of this one, Brandon?
Yeah, I think this is pretty interesting, right? Because, when you talk about Bitcoin, we always talk about how it's the most liquid market that there is on the marketplace, right? But, you think about it, 50,000 coins is quite a bit to be dumped onto exchanges to be immediately bought back, right? So having only not even 2,000 of those coins, right? I mean, not even, a significant chunk of that percentage, maybe about 2% of those coins, maybe 3% if you run the numbers, really weren't able to be bought fully off of an exchange. So I think at the end, this is very encouraging and they're going to probably try to sell them over some period of time, right? And it just gets more coins into the hodlers' hands. So I think everything's good for Bitcoin. So I think initially this might be the reason why we're seeing such a dump, right? We're seeing a lot of, selling going on. But I think in the end, these coins are going to get scooped up by some of the hodlers and go into more of the diamond hand, crazy psychopaths that are going to be holding Bitcoin. So, I think initially, Luke, it might be a little bit of bearish sentiment, but, if we're looking at, everything from the past and what we've seen in Bitcoin's history, I think these coins are going to get scooped up and they're going to get scooped up quick. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to give you my thoughts in a moment, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about Germany in a moment, but you said it, the coins are flowing to the hodlers' hands. If there are coins flowing to the hodlers' hands, we want to make sure that they're going to the hodlers' hands in the right way. So obviously here on the channel, we are massive advocates of taking self-custody of your Bitcoin, aren't we, Brandon?
Amen, amen, brother. We are huge advocates of the self custody. I know we've talked quite a bit about the ETFs and what's going on in the traditional finance market, but you could even see, there has been a lot of Bitcoin being withdrawn from exchanges here, right? I mean, isn't this somewhat surprising or par for the course? I think of seeing BitMEX seeing nearly 19,000 coins seeing 35,000 coins, excuse me, being removed from their exchange, leaving them with only 19,000. So more and more Bitcoin has been taken off an exchange. And I think, this is partially part of the reason why we saw, the German government maybe not able to sell it all there. So, I think this is a pattern and it's going to continue. And that's why, here we're huge advocates of self-custody because that's the true power of Bitcoin, right? I mean, we've got great partners here where we can help with holding that self-custody and holding Bitcoin yourself. We've got Foundation. You could go to foundation.xyz, get yourself a passport using promo code Green Candle, and you'll get $10 off. If you're feeling a little nervous about it, they've even got a concierge service for you to help get that Bitcoin off an exchange. And what are you going to do? Where are you going to store that seed phrase? You got to store it on a titanium punch plate by Stampseed. They're the #1 place where you can do it. I've been testing all of these punch plates in order to help you store your Bitcoin seed phrases securely, because I'm only going to give you guys stuff that I use, and I use Stampseed and Foundation to do all that. And I use promo code Green Candle to get 15% off at Stampseed. And then lastly, if you want to orange pill and learn a lot more about Bitcoin, we've got the orange pill in the pack here at Bitcoin Trading Cards, BTC-TC, where you could get all of this stuff. You could get some commemorative pack, the Genesis pack, all these things to help you orange pill your friends and family. And you can use promo code Green Candle, get 10% off. So, and that'll help you understand a lot of these key topics that we're talking about on this channel. And the biggest thing to me is getting your Bitcoin off an exchange and utilizing the power of Bitcoin and being your own bank and utilizing self-custody. So Luke, what you got for me?
Yeah, I mean, self-custody is what it's all about. I mean, like this German government is clearly learning the importance of self-custody. Trying to transfer 50,000 Bitcoin onto and off the exchanges, which is pretty crazy and pretty dramatic. To put a little bit of a wrapper on the whole German story, I would love your thoughts after I give mine, Brandon. But I think we've kind of framed up both sides of the argument for today's video. We've kind of made the argument for why the German government might have actually said, hang on a minute, we're not 100% sure we want to dump 111 million Bitcoin on the exchanges. Let's move it back to our wallet and have a think about it. So some other people have said maybe the reason why we're seeing this $111 million flow back to the German wallet is because maybe they're thinking, hang on a minute, we're really moving the price of Bitcoin around on these exchanges by dumping so much Bitcoin. And, we're suffering from a little bit of slippage and we're not getting the best price. Why don't we go and sell this Bitcoin on an OTC desk? So that's another argument that we haven't discussed today, okay? I think for me, what do you think of that, firstly?
Yeah, I think from that, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? You want to get the most bang for your buck at a certain point in time. And when you look at, how the balance sheets work on all these countries, it wouldn't surprise me that they're looking at it. They're seeing the volatility of Bitcoin dumping off. They're thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe it's all this news as the reason why, we're dumping all this. But, I also think they're just trying to get rid of their Bitcoin as quickly as possible, and they're just trying to get some money back in for them. So I don't think that they're necessarily looking at the price volatility from all this because, you got to think, Luke, it's also confiscated coins. So, they got this for basically, just whatever the paycheck was for those employees who were able to confiscate these coins, maybe working on these things. But, at the end of the day, they're going to want to dump all that money. They're going to want to get that dirty fiat more on their balance sheet. And I think, the German government might not understand Bitcoin just yet. But I'm hopeful that this is another touch point that they're going to start to learn about that. So I don't know. I don't really think so, but you never know. Maybe they want to get the most bang for their buck.
Yeah, I mean, that's an argument. And then I probably fall on the side of things where I probably think that the tweet the Bitcoin news popped out is potentially right now the best explanation of what's happening. Maybe they had a ton of sell orders that they weren't executed and the Bitcoin was sent back to their wallet, okay? Maybe that's what happened. because the price of Bitcoin is been very volatile. It's very common for sell orders on exchanges to not get filled because the price of Bitcoin is so volatile. So I think this is a new and evolving story. I think we've kind of brought you guys both sides of the story today, which is what we always try to do. We try to give you a little bit of a balanced perspective and, show both sides of the story. And until we get more information, we're going to watch this story closely for you guys.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's something to keep a close eye on, because if a government starts to get involved, you never know what kind of storm that's going to cause on the way up and up. I mean, we saw what happened when El Salvador announced it, and I'll be looking for more countries to potentially start to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I mean, we also, you mentioned it a little bit, right? We've got Trump and we've got other politicians being very vocal about Bitcoin. And, I think it's only a matter of time. So I think this is one to definitely keep your eyes on, and we'll be tracking it closely here. So, I'm excited for what's coming forward, and big things ahead.
Well, speaking of big things ahead, didn't you launch your brand new YouTube channel today? And you dropped a pretty big name guest for that first interview as well. We dropped an interview with the one and the only Mike Green, one of the greatest intellectual minds I think there is in the macro space. I certainly don't agree with all of his views surrounding Bitcoin, which is why I was extra fascinated to tune into your interview with Mike. I can see that you've dropped it in the chat there for the people who want to check it out. But tell us more about this brand new YouTube channel you've dropped, Brandon.
Yeah, for sure. So I've had the macro show for a little bit now. So, but I've decided to kind of move it over and put it on a new separate channel here. So you can search Macro Insights Pod. You'll find this interview here, which we just dropped today with Mike Green. He's great outside of his opinion on Bitcoin, right? I mean, I think he has a lot of great points, and he talks a lot about what he thinks is potentially ahead for the overall market and the overall economy. He talks a lot about the cracks underneath the surface. It was a great conversation. So Mike's always great and generous with his time, but maybe one of these days we'll turn him over to Bitcoin. But at this point, I think we should just listen to a lot of his macro takes and what his opinions are on that side of things. So yeah, everybody go check that out. The Macro Insights Pod. Look out for that, and I'll be dropping more of those interviews in the future. We'll be sprinkling them in, and it's always good to get the macro side and the perspective from TradFi. Because I know we get in a lot of the Bitcoin stuff, and we're tracking that very closely. But I'm always interested to see how the old traditional financial world will mix in with the new traditional financial world of Bitcoin. And as those things start to cross paths, I'll be tracking that closely here. So go check that out. And Luke, thanks for the shout out on that, man.
Hey, I mean, brand new podcast. I loved it. I thought it was interesting because I also agree with Mike on the fact that we are seeing a technology bubble potentially bigger than what we saw in the 2001 technology bubble crash. So in that interview, Mike was obviously talking about all of the similarities between today's bubblicious behavior and the bubblicious behavior we saw in that 2000 technology bubble crash. So yeah, I mean, I think Bitcoin is macro. So I've always had an obsession and a love for keeping an eye on what's going on in the macro world of things. So I think it's a great idea. You spun up a separate macro YouTube channel. You got a ton of big name guests dropping soon. I think we're going to be dropping interviews with Doomberg as well as a number of big names in the space. So yeah, I think it's good to keep the finger on the pulse, so to say.
100%. So yeah, go check that out. And thank you guys all for joining us in here today. And we'll be keeping track and close eyes on this German story. So stay tuned for more.
Adios.